To be really intentional about putting a team together.
I was in!
Crawled out of the pond and started screaming.
How good is Joey Bosa?
Herbert, rolling, looking, throwing, end zone, touchdown, intercepted. Derwin was there.
You got to be on a mission every day in the NFL. But even more than that, you got to be on a mission together.
Great hands, Keenan Allen.
The Los Angeles Chargers select Rashawn Slater.
Asante Samuel Jr.
Stop! Oh, I'm stopping y'all boys. That's what I'm saying.
Intercepted, picked up by Michael Davis. Explosion, explosiveness from Eckler. There's Murphy. Boy, he blew that up, didn't he? It is picked off. Nasir Adderley. 50-50 ball is 100%. Mike Williams.
Ochena, Nwosu, and that will end it.
Time to bolt up.
Welcome to another edition of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you from the LAFB Network. Today's show, of course, is being brought to you by UFC Fit in Temecula, Brewery X in Anaheim, and Chargers Bolt family. Dan,
Let's go.
you can go back to the Victory Mondays that you and I have talked about. And like we said, in 2020, they were very few and far between. It's hard to imagine one that maybe you have to go back to like the early 2010 era, back when Phillip Rivers and this team was making the playoffs consistently every year. But it's hard to imagine a Victory Monday that is as sweet as this one, because what the hell happened yesterday?
Let's go.
Wow.
Let's go. Chargers 2-1. We are live with all of our friends and Chargers Bolt fam everywhere. For those who are watching, streaming on whether it's Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, you name it, come say hello, stop by, leave your comments. Let's have some fun today. We are going to be interacting with all of you as we go through the Week 3 huge victory of the Los Angeles Chargers 30 to the Kansas City Chiefs 24 in Arrowhead. Jake, is this a gangster's paradise? Is this what it feels like? Are we doing this? Is that what we're doing?
Look,
Even Jake does something at Jake.
Staley may find a reason to call every player on this team a gangster for some reason by the time that the regular season is done with. He called Justin Herbert a gangster quarterback yesterday. Then he called Keenan Allen a gangster route runner today. I don't know. I think he's going to redefine the gangster term eventually before this season's done.
Look, I can't get over how much we saw yesterday and how many demons we were able to kind of get off our back. I shouldn't say our back, off of their back. I didn't play. But the team did so many things well. And the funny part is there are so many takeaways we can glean from this. But I think both of us kind of have our keys. So what we're going to do today, as always, we have comments, questions, topics from everyone who is chiming in. You guys can call into the hotline, leave a voicemail if you'd like. We have a few voicemails we're going to get to at the end of the show. We also have kind of our keys, key takeaways, key matchups, things that actually happened in the game. And probably the most important part of this is what went right. But Jake, I don't even know where to start with this. I have kind of like my key takeaways, but the first takeaway I have right now is I have seen more smiles from Jake Hefner in the first 2 minutes of this podcast than I can remember in the history of this show. How are you feeling?
I mean, it depends on how you slice it, Dan, because if you were to, you'd have to separate them between like genuine smiles and sarcastic smiles, because last year I threw plenty of smiles, but it was more out of laughter and
so
just
crying.
sheer humiliation in humor on, at the time, how bad this team was looking on a week in and week out basis, save the last, 4 weeks of the season. But, I mean, hey, for this Chargers team that's notoriously off to a bad start, and the way that you let the game get away in Dallas or at SoFi against Dallas. They say that winning cures all ills. And holy shit. I really can't believe what I witnessed yesterday, because it felt a lot like there were certain aspects of the Washington game that you go back and you think to yourself, historically there was things that could have easily turned in Washington's favor, that the Chargers could have lost that game. But any time that you go to Kansas City to have to play against Patrick Mahomes, who has essentially owned you since he has been in the league, and Kansas City coming off of a loss. Dan, did you realize that there were, in the last 2 weeks for Kansas City, 2 big trends have stopped? Patrick Mahomes, who was flawless in the month of September, lost last week in just crazy fashion at the end of the game against the Baltimore Ravens. And the Chiefs, because of their loss yesterday to the Chargers, now have a losing record for the first time since 2015. I mean, when you are that accustomed
Must be
to
nice.
winning, when winning is like your next door neighbor and you just expect it, like, you're ordering, fresh goods from DoorDash every week and just expect it to be there on your doorstep every Sunday morning.
It's always right here.
When something like this happens, I understand why everybody in Kansas City is freaking out, because when you are that accustomed to winning and then something like the last 2 weeks have gone on, it just feels weird. But welcome to the rest of the NFL world.
Hell of a game, and that W tastes delicious. Tastes like brisket. Can't get enough of it. What up, Herbillis? Thank you for coming in. I know we've already had a few people. Jason has come in. Andres has come in already. Angel, we got a bunch of comments here already, Jake, so we'll try to weave these in and out as we go. Jake, you tweeted about it. We talked about it in the last episode.
Oh, it felt so good.
Yes.
I know I picked the Chiefs to win that game, and trust me, separate occasions at the end when it was 2-14 and the Chiefs get the ball back, I thought the game was over at that point. And even when Patrick Mahomes had an opportunity left with 32 seconds and a timeout left, I still thought, holy crap, we left him too much time. But it was so gratifying to pay off what I said at the end of last week. And what I said was, imagine if the Chargers are able to get a win in Arrowhead, how much flack that Charger fans everywhere are going to say, you saw it. Do you believe it? Or you believe it now that you saw it? Oh,
and you have to give Mahomes credit. I don't know.
It.
He owned it.
I don't know who that was that asked the question. Yeah.
That reporter that asked the question about that afterwards in the post game, he said, "I guess I believe it." Like he just owned up to it. Man, like we said last show, imagine the euphoria of us sitting here on a Monday night, getting to talk about a Chiefs victory or a Chargers victory over the Chiefs, and yet here we are. And so, for folks who have not seen or do not follow us on Twitter, we had a lovely kind of 3 hours later SpongeBob meme with Jake's tweet after the game of believe it when you see it. And man, that felt good. Man, that felt good. Yes, Jason, I believe you are correct. Justin Herbert I think it's glitched. That's what he meant to say. The NFL Matrix. And there's so many ways to go about this. And Jake, I think there's a ton of takeaways that we can get to here. But I think what was on display for me, and I went back and watched this game, and no, we're not going to go through and do like a recap. We all know the Chargers won. We all know what happened. We all know like the play-by-play. We're not going to get into like the nitty-gritty of each individual play because you all saw what happened on Sunday. But we are going to get into some of those takeaways that I don't think people necessarily either witnessed or appreciate. And hopefully after this conversation, we can all be on the same page of like what we just saw. Jake, how would you assess the Chargers' defensive performance yesterday?
They did everything that they could do, Dan, honestly. I mean, getting the 4 turnovers throughout the game, putting pressure on Mahomes in not the conventional way that we thought. They actually got very creative in ways that they put pressure on Patrick Mahomes. Guys stepped up. Joey Bosa, who I know we'll talk about in just a few minutes, was just an absolute monster given the circumstances of how he was coming into this game. But given all of that, Dan, for how they performed defensively, it still came down to the last play of the game. And that's just what you have to realize when you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. It's going to come down to that. There should not be anybody, Chargers fans, Chiefs fans alike, who did not think that when the score was 14-3 at halftime, that the Chiefs were not going to come back and not score points and
Chargers
make adjustments and eventually get theirs. Come on. I mean, hey, I would love to see it, but let's let you knew if Charger fans who've been watching this team for a long time, you know that the Chiefs are going to get theirs. And whether we're talking about the Alex Smith Chiefs or we're talking about the Patrick Mahomes Chiefs, they're going to make adjustments because they have that good of a coaching staff, and they're going to score points regardless. Dan and I's final score for both of this game was a high-scoring game, and it turned out to be just that. But ultimately, Dan, to keep the Chiefs at 24 points, first off, is just an accomplishment. I mean, you tell me that, I would say, okay, so that means that the Chargers probably scored 17, I'd have to guess. But to outduel them under the circumstances when really the Chargers needed this win more than the Chiefs did. And I say that strictly because the Chiefs are going to be there at the end of the day. Still going to finish the season with double-digit wins when it's all said and done. But the Chargers coming off the loss that they gave up to Dallas, and when you have 2 divisional opponents that are right behind that game, coming off the way that you lost it, then having to travel cross-country for an early game against one of the best to ever do it. I mean, this station in the long term.
It really is. It really is incredible. It is incredible. And I think one of the things that is mind-blowing to me is, like, you saw a little bit of this as you're watching. Like, the Chargers are doing great. First quarter looks good. I mean, there was kind of a stumble in drives a little bit, but here and there, like, overall, at the end of the half, you're winning. You should be up 21-0. You end up being 14-3. But folks were acting as if, like, there was, like, hell had frozen over. No one's doing well, and the team is not performing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, the Chargers are doing about as good as you possibly could. Yet here we are, and Chargers Twitter is going ballistic as if, like, there's something wrong with this team. Let's remember, the Chargers got 3 turnovers in the first half, 4 turnovers in the total game. And there is no way to stop Patrick Mahomes. You're not going to stop the Kansas City Chiefs. The best you can do is contain them, try to blanket, put a huge kind of lid over the entire offense, try to contain kind of the disruptive, huge plays, and try to make them be perfect and force turnovers. By the way, it looks like Jake's internet has gone out, so he'll probably be joining us in a bit. So I'm going to be going solo until he returns. The Chargers defense played about as perfect of a game as you possibly could do as a defense against that team. Jake, welcome back.
Thank you.
It is currently the year 2021. And the Chargers just won, Jake. Isn't that weird?
What?
Yes. So the Chargers played about as good you could on defense against this team. And this was a complete team win. And so one of the, I think, biggest takeaways I had from this game, which we're going to get into a bunch. And we're going to get into a lot of, like, the specific players who performed well. He talked about Bosa. We'll talk about a whole bunch of them in a bit. But for me, Jake, there was some coaching that we saw on Sunday that we have been begging and praying for to arrive to LA. And I don't necessarily think people recognize just how impactful coaching was to this victory. And you heard a lot of people, Jake, talk about, oh, Lombardi this. Oh, we should blitz more. Oh, we're like, there were so many things that people were saying. And I was just like, are we watching the same game? Jake, what was your kind of overall impression of just what the coaching staff was able to accomplish yesterday?
I think as a whole, you have to look at it and just say collectively, what an accomplishment. And it starts on the defense. The turnovers that you were able to create, which they did, maybe -1 for the fact that Patrick Mahomes' ball went off his receiver's hands, and that ended up still an amazing interception by Asante Samuel Jr. that he ended up coming up with it. But they forced the turnovers, and that's what you have to do again for Kansas City. You look back at any of the let's just use the Patriots as an example, Dan. When they had Tom Brady, and then you had the combination of Bill Belichick, what was the thing that people always used to say when you'd go up against New England? You can't make mistakes against them, or they're going to make you pay. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, more times than not, people would make mistakes. New England would force them into making mistakes. The Chargers offensively played a flawless game. Whatever you want to say, yes, you can talk about the drop from Jalen Guyton, which should have been 7 points. I get that. The illegal shift penalties, yeah, at that time that ended up hurting. But for Justin Herbert to go into that atmosphere, really for the first time, considering that he didn't have to face fans last year, but to go into that atmosphere on the road under those circumstances and throw for plus 280, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, which everybody was criticizing him for over the first 2 weeks, saying that he's regressing, that he's having a sophomore slump, whatever. I thought offensively, they executed the right game plan. They went to Mike Williams earlier in the game, and they stuck that through for 4 quarters, and you look what type of impact that had on the game. Keenan Allen obviously was making plays. I'd still, as things go along, I would like to be getting Jared Cook and Donald Parham a little bit more involved, a little bit more, much like Austin Eckler did in the first game against Kansas City last year. He was another focal point of this offensive scheme. And hey, credit to Storm Norton, who gave up a ridiculous 10 pressures last week, 2 given up this week. So much improved. The offensive line was much more improved. Gave Justin Herbert plenty of more time to make some of these passes downfield. So, yeah, I mean, it starts from the top with Brandon Staley, Dan, as you were saying. The guts and no showing of fear that really you have to play against championship-level teams like the Chiefs to go for it like he did in fourth down scenarios. I think there was 3 throughout the entire game. And had no fear with it, especially when it comes up to a 4th and 4 call. You trot Vizcaino out there to essentially kick the field goal. Then you take a timeout, say, no, let's think about it. He goes to Justin Herbert. He says, what do you want to do? Let's go for it. Okay, 4th 4 comes up, and it's a false start. Normally, if this was last year's coaching regime, this is either a field goal attempt or you're punting it away, or most likely it's a field goal attempt and it's missed and you're giving Patrick Mahomes a short field to go down there and probably win the game. But what does Staley do? 4th and 9, I don't give a damn. Throw it, because you trust your quarterback more than you do your kicker, especially in the weather elements that were playing in Kansas City for that game. And look where that got you. Look where that got you.
Here we are celebrating a victory, and yes, you are correct, Carlos. Alohi saved the day with that last interception, and Jake, you and I both had bold predictions come true. We talked about the young safeties going to come in, get interception. Happened. The amount of plays that we saw from Nazir Adderley, from Alohi Gilman, from Asante Samuel Jr., from Tavon Campbell, which we'll get to. A lot of this is personal skill from these guys. But, and I'm going to get into this here, the coaching that was on display on Sunday was something I have never seen covering this Chargers team. Let me just walk you through a couple of these things. So I call it coaching excellence. And I know that's so like oxymoronic for anyone who's a Chargers fan, but there were things, little nuances to this game plan yesterday that we started to see weeks past, and a few people actually called it out. And when I went back and watched the game, it was evident how impactful this was. We've heard some rumblings of some of these things. I want to kind of like double click on these. We've seen folks talk about kind of like the quick snap and how that could affect a defense. We've heard about kind of the acumen from Justin Herbert and how he can take a lot on his plate and can be coached up. We've heard a lot about like the communication between center and quarterback and how important that is. All three of those things come from coaching. Like you have to be able to have a coaching staff that can implement to all of these advantages. Let me explain. Quick snaps, for example. The Chargers caught the Chiefs on defense with quick snaps all day long. Go back and watch the game, Jake. There were forced timeouts that were called because of the quick plays, quick snaps. You go back, you could take screenshots of how many times you see flat feet and defenders looking at each other while the Chargers have already snapped the ball. The touchdown to Austin Eckler and the 2-point conversion both was a quick snap without the defense being ready. The first touchdown to Mike Williams early in the fourth quarter combined both like the hurry up offense that they just did where they just went and quickly made a play, as well as what we saw Daniel Popper talk about, the advantage look concept, which this part is awesome. So if you go back and watch, and I think people saw this maybe on Twitter and Facebook a little bit, Herbert's late touchdown to Mike Williams was actually called a run. The Chargers were up, were tied with roughly like 50 seconds left. And the Chargers could have easily just run out the clock, kicked a 25-yard field goal into the 30-mile-an-hour winds with already have missing 2 extra points. This coaching staff knows how smart Justin Herbert is, and they have been practicing this all offseason. They implemented what they call an advantage looks, where basically they have a play called as a run, but when Justin Herbert, if he sees a matchup he likes, i.e. Keenan Allen or Mike Williams or someone in one-on-one coverage, he can basically go through an audible and call a fade, a slant, a bubble screen, and only he and the wide receiver know about it, and then they'll quickly adjust. You saw that happen constantly, and that is exactly what Justin Herbert ended up doing on that touchdown to Mike Williams. Took balls, again, coached up by this coaching staff. Fast forward. Then you hear Matt Hasselbeck talk about this a couple weeks ago, or talk about this yesterday, about the last few weeks, about this idea of secret snaps on display, that basically Justin Herbert and Corey Linsley have this kind of like secret thing where they turn around, look at each other, act as if they're going to be talking real fast, and then essentially it goes from Justin Herbert making the cadence to Corey Linsley just immediately snapping it. And you saw that happen multiple times throughout the last few weeks, and it's keeping defenses on their toes. And Jake, before I go any further, like it's so weird to me to sit here and be gushing over competitive advantages that we are getting watching a Chargers team. And people don't necessarily recognize that these are happening like in critical, crucial points of the game. And that's when this team has kind of cowered in the past, whether it's because of lack of decision-making, lack of preparation, lack of execution, lack of whatever. Like the team collectively, Jake, was not afraid of the moment, and seeing like that coaching excellence on display throughout 4 quarters was something that I wasn't expecting. And I'm sitting here watching the replay, Jake. I'm like just kind of smiling ear to ear. And I'm like going back and replaying, make sure, did I really see that correctly? Like, are they really? And like, did you catch that? Did you see some of these things? And I just don't know if people recognize what we're seeing from this coaching staff.
I mean, I hope so. I'm sure it's going to become more evident as the season goes on. But what I look at it is more with from whether it's a playoff development standpoint, or even if you just take a small snapshot of what was happening last week. and bring it to this week. From a coaching standpoint, I think their game plan was better. From a coaching standpoint, I think they made adjustments for what that they were, hurting in the Dallas game. I think that they made those adjustments very well. Say what you want, yes, about the illegal shift penalties. I get it. That doesn't really have much to do with Lombardi, considering that he's up there. But yeah, you have to obviously address your players because that's more an execution. As Tony Romo was saying, Justin Herbert has to get the timing down as far as when to snap the ball. He has to realize that there's still guys that are moving there. So that's overall an execution. You can only take that in coaching so far when it comes to just saying like, look, just make sure that you're set before you snap the ball, please, because it's absolutely handcuffing this team. And it's already taken one victory away from you because of it. Let's not have it be a recurring thing. Dan, as you said, I hope to God I never hear the term illegal shift ever again in a Chargers game, and I'm with you. So these are still some of the growing pains. It's not necessarily that any from a standpoint that Justin Herbert's regressing, but it's not going to be a flawless execution with a brand new coaching staff. It's not. You're going to have to go through these little bumps. But it's nice to see as opposed to last year when it felt like week after week after week. We're standing on here, coming on the show, Dan, talking about simple situational football mistakes. And it was like the same damn mistakes that kept happening. And
we can't get a field goal unit out.
Right. As we said, they are literally rewriting the book on how to lose games last year. So flip the script, man. I mean, as you said, it's a breath of fresh air to have a competent coaching staff, and especially one that doesn't play conservative or without fear.
Yep. Carlos Ramirez, you are correct. We can also credit the quick snaps of Corey Lindsley, and Matt Hasselbeck talked about that. Yes, I agree with you. Carnage, the relief felt when the offense went back out instead of Vizcaíno was unbelievable. Like all of us, I'm sitting there, I'm like, we're about to kick a 49-yard field goal in a 20-mile-an-hour wind when our field goal we've missed 2 extra points. I'm like, this is a Chargers loss. This is how it happens. Like I see this story before, and 4th and 4, false start. 4th and 9, doesn't matter. They go for it anyways. Jake, this is really cool. Carnage actually gave us a second comment. I'll read this out for the folks that are listening. It's crazy that as someone who only started following football and the Chargers this year, he's from England, even I can feel the difference in this team compared to previous seasons.
So apparently what happened was he heard us. The fan base that a lot of people say that doesn't exist. He heard the frustration all the way across the pond from Chargers fans and said, oh, okay, so they really have a lot of problems. And I can already tell watching 3 games of how different this team looks. Yes, he heard us.
He did. Teroy Lee, let's go Chargers. Thanks for tuning in. Folks who are tuning in, listening right now, thank you guys so much. If you can, click a like, subscribe, smash the subscribe button, as well as the likes, so you can get those thumbs up and having some fun here, get some more content out for you guys. Jake, Nick Wilson, 30 years of watching the Bolts. Started following, he was 7. That makes him 37. He's right around our age. Nick Wilson, great time to be alive. And yes, living in gangster's paradise. That 4th and 9 was gangster AF. Man, that felt good. All right, so getting into another kind of component of this, and I think, Jake, you'll like this. And Chargers fans everywhere probably like this. When is the last time, Jake, we got to see a aggressive play calling and aggressive coaching from a Chargers team? Aggressive, specifically.
It depends on what your definition of aggressive was. I definitely don't think that you could say that you saw that with the previous coaching regime. Definitely not under the Mike McCoy scheme. Maybe back when Norv first arrived and the Chargers made that nice playoff run when Phillip Rivers was really starting to come into his own. Early Norv Turner, like maybe the first or the second year, not the years that followed after that, because I was never really stoked on his hiring in the first place after Marty and how after all that situation went down. But maybe Norv, if not that, then it's definitely say what you will about Marty Ball, but that was a team that in 2006 dominated the trenches and dominated the running game, and Phillip Rivers was only asked to do so little. So Marty just liked to run it down people's throats and stay aggressive that way. That wasn't always the mantra that worked, and obviously the NFL has played a lot differently than it is now. So yeah, it's been a minute since you could mesh the two words Chargers and aggressive in the same sentence.
TSK says it perfectly. We have never seen this level of aggression. And shout out, we have a special guest here, Jake. Special guest, the one and only Chargers Marge comes in with her 2 cents.
How about that?
Mike Williams is a baller, and Keenan Allen is indeed always open. Jake, we were watching the game together. And at one point, real quick, sidebar, we were watching the game together, and she's like, wow, they're throwing to that Mike Williams guy a lot. Like, I don't remember hearing that name that much. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, I thought Keenan Allen was always open. And I was like, well, he is. And I said, this isn't about, like, Keenan Allen not being Keenan Allen. Like, Keenan Allen is not advertised. It's the fact that Mike Williams is now playing at a Keenan Allen level that has this whole offense, like, on steroids, and it's incredible. So when I heard her give that quote of Keenan Allen's always open, my heart melted a little bit. All right, so back to aggression. Okay, let me read to you some of the things I wrote down to myself for the aggressive play calling. And again, like I mentioned, critical crunch time. You mentioned 3 fourth downs. There's actually 4 fourth downs. You remember the I want to say it was 4th and 4. Keenan Allen got like a 40-yard catch, and then it was brought back because I believe it was a holding. Or no, that was an illegal shift as well. There's actually 2 illegal shifts. So that was actually 4 times it went 4 on 4th down in that game. Then you go to 3rd and 1 late in the 3rd quarter where you saw that deep pass to Jared Cook. Again, 3rd and 1. Late 3rd quarter, and you're passing it over the shoulder. Beautiful catch by Jared Cook. You saw a 3rd and 2 pass play to Keenan Allen with less than a minute to go, tied at 24. All of these, Jake, last year would have been runs. 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1. There's a 3rd and 4th throw to Mike Williams before the 4th quarter. Excuse me, before the 4th.
Was there a 1st and 15 scenario? Because that definitely would have been a run last year too.
Yep. The throw before the 4th and 4 and 4th and 9 was the slant to Mike Williams. He dropped it. But again, 3rd and 4, that's a run last year. Like, these are all aggressive. 1st and 10, deep fade route to Mike Williams to the 3 at the end of the game. That's a run. Chargers would have just run out the clock, prayed for a field goal, and Monsoon wins. Like, these play calls and trust in their team is not normal for Chargers fans. And so, like, lost in this was just how different this was. And people were giving, like, Joe Lombardi crap for, like, oh, and I was, to be honest, I was a little upset at the beginning of the game when they were doing a little bit more of, like, that horizontal, going into flats too much. I'm like, dude, you guys could just cook down the field. Maybe they heard me because they started doing it. And the aggression that you called, like you mentioned, the 4th and 4, the 4th and 9, the 4th and 3, the other 4th down, like, I'm sitting here watching this, and Jake, it was weird. You and I, normally, for folks who are not in the room, every game, Jake and I usually will have some kind of text messages back and forth. And you could tell immediately how well or how poorly this Chargers team is doing by how many text messages I am getting from Jake Hefner and how early they come. Typically, the only time I'm getting text messages from Jake is when something miraculously goes wrong for the Chargers, and Jake is already just chalking up to the loss, chalking up to, like, well, here we go again. And again, I get it because Jake has been scarred for literally decades. But yesterday, I didn't get a single text from Jake Hefner until maybe that there were 2, right? There's one where you were there was something that happened.
It was literally back to back because it was when the Chargers tied it, 24 points, and there was 2:14 left on the clock, and the Chiefs still had a timeout plus the 2-minute warning, and Patrick Mahomes has the ball, and everybody figured. I even saw it throughout Twitter. It's like, well, this game is over. Left him too much time. Weren't able to execute. Had to settle for the field goal there. Patrick Mahomes going to go down and do it again. And then out of nowhere, a very ill-advised interception overthrows. Travis Kelce cuts the route short, and Alohi Gilman just gets a gift basket right in the chest. And literally, the text messages were game over, and then it was followed by what the fuck.
Not in a good way. Not in a good way.
What the fuck, with about 4 different expletives, as if I can't believe that Patrick Mahomes just turned over the football.
It was a sight to see, and I said this. I forget where I said this before, but the one thing I will say, and this is for all Chargers fans out there who are living with their emotions on their sleeve, and I get it. I get it. Like, when the Chargers aren't doing well, like, you want to like kind of get upset and scream and blame everyone and just like throw crap at the wall and hope it sticks. But like, you have to have like, I don't know, emotional resolve. Like, I don't know what the right word is, but like, you got to stay a little calm. And what I saw was just people freaking out. And they were freaking out when there was a little bit of adversity. And like, I understand. Go ahead, Jake. Before I continue, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Dan, I hark this back to the uproar that you hear from people whenever you hear just a sniff of a guy not practicing in training camp. Why? Because historically, the football gods have not been good to the Chargers when it's come to injuries in the past. So, yes, for the people that get in that uproar, they have every right to do it because the Chargers have had to deal with that for so long. The Chargers having a horrible record historically in one-score games, when you could easily, one play here, one play there, flip the entire script on everything, and that record's completely different. The Chargers fan base is sick of the rest of the NFL using the term the most, Chargers are chargering.
As a verb.
Yes, as a verb. As if it's like some nuance that this is what we do when we lose. Because the only team in critical situations that really beat us are that we beat ourselves. Because we make just the most asinine mistakes at the most critical points of the game historically. So, yes, people getting out in front of it like that, given that type of scenario, I don't blame those people for doing it. Because why? It's happened so much for so long.
True.
And you're just like, okay, well, here we go.
I get it. And Nick Wilson asked, did you guys see Nick Hardwick's Instagram post? He talked about Marty and Raiders Week. I did see this. And before he talks about Raiders Week, Jake, he used a term that I thought was the perfect encapsulation of what went wrong with Chargers Twitter for about 30 minutes. He used the term emotional control. Did you catch that word that he used?
I just heard emotional, which I think is completely accurate. But to me, there wasn't a lot of control in that last 2 minutes of the game.
Yes. Now, he used the term emotional control, and the team has to have that. Guys, gals listening, Jake, imagine if you're a Chargers player, or we're all Chargers players, and we're playing well, things are going our way, and all of a sudden things don't go our way, and we get screwed by a call, or we give up big plays. And all of a sudden, we tell ourselves, here we go again. We suck. This is going to be Marty Ball all over again. Thanks, Anthony Lynn. This guy should get fired. Here we go. We're going to lose this one, too. You're going to lose that game every time. The team has to have emotional control. And to be honest, they did. Fan base needs to get a little bit more control over their emotions. I understand we've been burned. And I'm right there with you. But this is a brand new team. There is far more that is different than is similar from years past of this team. Accept that. And then be a fanatic of the team. You could be critical. I've been critical. Jake's been critical. But you have to let it play out before you start freaking out. Just chill. It's okay. Just emotional control. I heard Nick Hardwick talk about that, and I immediately went to it. I was like, yes, I agree. shout out Jorge, Dan the man, thank you. Jake is also the man. I'm giving him 3 exclamation points. Ian Alexander, Jake, pitching himself still. Talk about Jerry Tillery for a sec, Jake. How impressive was the script flip that we saw on Jerry Tillery?
I was going to get into the unsung heroes, really, of this game, but we talked about the pressures that Joey Bosa was able to put on earlier. Second behind Joey Bosa was Jerry Tillery. And this is what I really liked about this, and this goes into more of the coaching scheme, and you can layer this and flavor this however you want it to. But I think we know now who Jerry Tillery is. He is not one of these, guys rushing off the edge that is going to get consistent pressure. That's just not him. And yes, he still has a lot to work on when it comes to his aspects in the run game and obviously getting after the pass rusher. But in Notre Dame, when he played there, his biggest aspect, and one of the aspects that the Chargers drafted him, was to get interior defensive line pressure. And unfortunately, he has not lived up to that. So what do the Chargers do in this game? They have him creatively on the edge, rushing from one side of the field, pulling a stunt all the way to the other. And several times he was getting off his blockers. He was using his speed as one of his greatest tools that he has in his arsenal. And he was getting after Patrick Mahomes, and he was rushing him. He may not have put him on the ground, but he was harassing him. He was making him move around in the pocket. Whatever the hell Jerry Tillery ate, whatever the hell Ronaldo Hildo ate that morning, just have that be the continuous breakfast served every Sunday, please, because give me more of that. This is how you're creating space for Jerry Tillery to win matchups. Put him in a position where he can win with his speed. So he doesn't necessarily have to go through a guy, but find a creative way for him to go around a guy. Figure this out. And if that was the blueprint for something to build forward, I'm not going to go as far as to say we're going to see this same result next Monday or the weeks following. But if that is a blueprint for this coaching staff to follow, give me that all day.
We're going to get into some of the unsung heroes, or just heroes, individual playmakers that helped this team win. But before we get into those, Jake, there is something that I think we need to talk about, which is the scheme against this Kansas City Chiefs, specifically on defense. And I think you and I differ on this. So let's talk about it. In my opinion, Chargers had arguably, I have like a piece of fuzz that's stuck to my face for the last 10 minutes. I have no idea where it is. I'm trying to get it off, so I apologize for people if they're like, what are you doing? In my opinion, we talked to Nate Taylor about this earlier, covers the Chiefs. There's 5 keys to the Chargers' success. I'm going to see if I can remember these on the fly. Score 30. Do not blitz Mahomes. Force turnovers. Efficiency in the red zone. And embrace chaos and take advantage of it. And they honestly got all 5 of those. Crushed it. I think they were 4 for 5 in the red zone. They got 4 turnovers. Actually forced another fumble on Patrick Mahomes. If the Chargers would have fallen on that one, on his scramble, we would have had it. But again, I think it was offsides on them. Or maybe it was legal formation. I forget. But we actually forced 3 fumbles and 2 interceptions. Yes, the Chargers gave up 100 yards on the ground to Hilaire. Gave up some scrambles to Mahomes, but not really that much. They gave up 2, I think, at the first drive. Otherwise, it was the last drive where he ran for 20 yards, but it really didn't mean much. How do you want to who do you want to beat you? Do you want Mahomes to beat you? No. Do you want Kelsey to beat you? No. Do you want Hill to beat you? No. I'd rather have the other guys beat me. And if they beat me, they beat me. And that's exactly what they did. I'll take Clyde Edwards-Hilaire having to get 100 yards to beat us. If it's between that and a 70-yard bomb to Hill, I'll take 10 runs. I'm cool with that. The Chargers, in my opinion, their defense played about as good as you can against this offense. Say what you will about the Chargers giving up a bunch of rushing yards. Sure. You're going up against the best offense in the NFL. You're not stopping them. You're hoping to contain, force them to go methodically down the field. And that's what you did. And you got turnovers. And your guys actually finished. Which, Jake, you and I talked about constantly last year. There's so many opportunities the Chargers had. Balls right in their hands, and then they just drop them. Fumbles happen, go out of bounds. Dropped interceptions, like you name it. The Chargers actually held on to them. And you heard Brandon Staley talk about it. You heard Derwin James talk about it. Like, that is critical, especially when you're going up against an offense like the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, you saw it. Like, the Chargers were not going to get beat by long plays. I think they gave up 2 plays of 20-plus yards or more the entire game. Like, that's how you beat this team. And they did it perfectly. So I couldn't have been happier with how the Chargers played this team. Sure. Could they have pitched a shutout? Yes. Against the Chiefs? No.
Yeah, maybe you have to go back to what's everybody been really talking about the struggles with this team. Obviously, you can look at a bunch of different things from the Dallas game, but there was 2 trends that I talked about last week that really worried me heading into this game. One in particular that I said they had to have it if they had any chance of winning. Anybody saying how they're going to fix the run defense? At this point, I don't know. Okay, we're probably not going to fix the run defense in 2021. So just gear up for that. Expect that. You go into next year, put some high draft stock in it, maybe bring in a free agent. You're going to have to, considering certain guys in there's contracts up after this year and are probably not going to be with this team anymore. So I don't know how you fix it. At least just stop the hemorrhaging at some point and just at least make it more like a slow bleed. But I actually thought that the Kansas City Chiefs game plan against the Chargers in giving Clyde Edwards-Helaire the ball, regardless of the fact whether he fumbled twice, was the right thing to do. It was the right game plan because you're going right towards the weakness of this defense. And all that was going to do was going to open things up for Kansas City. But the biggest thing, Dan, the other trend that bothered me was prior to this game, the Chargers made 10 trips to the red zone. Only 3 times did they score a touchdown. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, they were 4 for 5 in that category. Should have been 5 for 5. Stupid illegal shift. Should have been 5 for 5. But that was a correction that absolutely needed to change in a hurry. And it did. And that was great. And that just, again, to your point, again, talking about the coaching staff, Dan, being aggressive, that's the aggressiveness that you have to have. And if you're going to have it against any team, it has to be against the Chiefs, because there is no way that, in my opinion, that you can hold them under 20 points and you're going to have to outscore them. And so you'll have to go blow for blow with Mahomes down the field. Every opportunity that this offense gets an opportunity to score, you have to take it.
Every time I saw people bitching about the defense, I was like, the offense hasn't scored yet. We haven't gotten 30. So what are you doing here? State Farm, sorry, Mahomes, I can't sell you home insurance. You're a liability. That needs to be the next commercial. Shout out, I'm going to mess up this name, A. Pimentel. Yes, I agree. That was hilarious. Good job. I think that should be a commercial, Jake. What about you?
The State Farm commercial? Yeah.
Yes,
Nick. Or State Farm gets a new slogan. State Farm. I'll see the insurance when I believe it. I'll believe the insurance when I see it.
Chargering as a verb, I know all of us are so over that. And again, that goes back to the demons I think that we've exercised a bit of. Like, there were a lot of times they could have done that these past 3 games. And in some of them, like, they did some of them. But, like, it's a different team. It's a different team. Yes, Dark Bosun 369. Staley's first year there will be many highs and lows, but we'll keep building towards a Super Bowl caliber team. Jake, the thing that's crazy to me, it has only been 3 games. 3 games into this new era, new regime. Did you expect to see this much of a drastic change this fast?
No, but throughout the preseason, when you'd hear Brandon Staley talk, it just like everything was there. And, just whenever you get a new coaching staff like this and a fresh start, it's like you want to believe this. And plenty of times, any team who gets new coaching staff wants to go in when they come into the year fresh 0-0. You want to believe that your team is going to be better. Brandon Staley, to me, sounded different than any of the previous 3 Chargers coaches that they have had in their regime. As I've said to Dan several times, I still believe that he could sell car insurance to a camel and he would buy it. He would buy it even if he didn't need it. Then to witness the balls that Brandon Staley has in this situation, and just to show you the type of belief that he has in his quarterback, it's really just something to behold, and just to really just say, you think that the Chargers may have actually done the right thing here with this coaching hire.
Yep. We talked about it right before we actually hired him, where I had said, I think he is the most innovative head coaching option there is. And wouldn't you know it, like, you're starting to see pay dividends. You must have been living under a rock or something for the past 40 minutes or the past 24 hours, because I'll believe it when I see it has been all over social media, including by our very own Jake Hefner. All right, let's get into some individual performances before we get into the voicemails. Jake, there were a ton of unsung heroes or heroes with great vocal cords and sang it to the heavens. Where do you want to start?
Well, I would have started with Jerry Tillery, number one, just given his performance. Nasir Adderley, I thought, had a great game, led the team in tackles. Drew Tranquill finally started getting involved in the defense a little bit more. Had 2 great plays. One was a coverage sack on Mahomes that he got while he was rolling out right to, I guess you could call it like kind of a half sack because it was a coverage sack, but Mahomes was rolling out right, heading towards the sidelines, and Tranquill was able to get him down. But there was a great play by him that he snuffed out the short screen play that right when Edwards-Helaire turned around, Tranquill was just right there to put him down before he could even get any traction going downfield. So Tranquill was another one. I think that even Staley had admitted in his presser to saying that he should have gotten Tranquill involved more over the last 2 weeks. So I think you're going to see that as a trend that's going to continue. Alohi Gilman, outside of the interception play that he got from Mahomes, you go back to, what was it, Dan? I think it was one of the final drives that Kansas City put up toward the end of the half.
The tackle.
Where it's another short dump off. You can totally see the screen play. And if this guy was able just to get a little bit of a beat on him to cut a little bit more inside, Alohi Gilman essentially saved what would have either been a long gain for this offense or possibly even a touchdown with his ankle tackle that he was able to save on that standpoint. Kaiser White had a number of good hits that he was in there on. Obviously,
that sack
Tavon
on Mahomes
Campbell
was awesome.
Yes. Obviously, Tavon Campbell punching out the ball and creating 2 crucial turnovers to Clyde Edwards-Helaire and giving this offense another opportunity to go down and score points. Defensively, Dan, it was fantastic. Offensively, you got to look towards the offensive line, and what a difference again! What a clean pocket makes. I had mentioned Storm Norton earlier. You go from giving up 10 pressures to a guy who hadn't played defensive end since high school 1 week ago, and now today you only give up 2. I think the coaching staff made adjustments to give him more help and do it early and often, because they were moving Chris Jones on that side. They were moving him out of his natural position in interior defensive line. They were moving to the edge, but that didn't end up paying too many dividends here. Rashawn Slater, another obviously just amazing game. Austin Eckler, I think, had a very, save for the touchdown, I think he had another just productive game.
Yeah,
and it seems like to me against the Chiefs, he's always going to be putting up these type of numbers. You go back to the final box score, what he was able to do in the rushing game. It's nothing that's going to blow your socks off, but again, in the receiving game, the option that he was able to be. And then to find himself wide open on his touchdown run. We could talk about Mike Williams and Keenan Allen all day. It looks like they're just going to continue to do their trends and be their guys right now. But these guys, more on the defensive side than anything, these were the unsung heroes of this game.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that you could talk about that played well. Yes, How weird is it? Like this alternate reality where we're talking about like positive performances from the offensive line. And yes, obviously.
Marcus McNeil was a long time ago, and that's too long. But damn it, does it feel good to have a left tackle back there?
And Slater is arguably better than him in his third NFL game. It's remarkable that he fell to the Chargers at 13, as it was that Asante Samuel fell to us at 47. But he has been as advertised and more. Yes, I agree. Storm Norton was also pretty good. Jorge comes in. Everyone except Pipkins. I think Pipkins was actually the one that messed up on the play. That was the fourth down.
I think he also did. He may have done a false start at some point in the game. I'm sure of it. But yeah, you're going to put it in any simple factor like that for the offensive lineman. I've given Pipkins way too much flack on this show already, and I'll calm down because I'm in a good mood. But
good.
Let's just say I agree.
Yep. Question for the group who are listening and watching. We'll go ahead and put some of these up as we get going on the rest of the episode. But what was your favorite part of the football game? From the time the clock started to the time the 60 minutes ended, what was your favorite part of this football game? Jake, you mentioned a lot of the guys who are unsung heroes. We got to talk about Mike Williams.
Not so much an unsung hero because it's
just a bona fide. I'm using the word. I'm using the word bona fide.
Where's here we go. There's one.
Bona fide baller. Mike Williams, have a day. I think he's in top 5 in both yards, receptions, and in touchdowns in the NFL.
Anybody grab him on their fantasy waivers? Because I don't know anybody that drafted him during the normal regulatory rounds of fantasy football. Anybody grab him in their fantasy waivers 2 weeks ago? Good on you if you did.
I just missed him. Like literally, I think I missed him by like an hour, and then it's too late. And now I'm like, God, dang it. Yes, Jorge, you are correct. We're naming almost the entire team. That's how you know it's a good game. Look, Mike Williams, I mentioned it earlier. He's making most of Chargers Twitter eat their words when everyone talked about like, oh, maybe he's not a good route runner. We shouldn't pay him. Like Mike Williams looks darn good. And something to remember, Jake, you and I talked about this offline. Mike Williams, the main thing for me personally, the biggest gripe I had that was like, man, paying that contract's going to be rich, was he was never healthy. It felt like he was always one catch away from being out for 4 games, out for the season. But again, another coaching thing that has completely transformed Mike Williams is they're kind of taking away that risk of injury, or at least they're diminishing it substantially. The previous coaching regime just chucked it 40 yards and had him lay out his body every time. He'd make great, amazing, brilliant catches, but then half the time he's out because he just wrecked his body. You're not seeing as much of that right now. And his health, I think, has shown dividends there. So now, all of a sudden, you're hearing people talk about, oh my gosh, we got to re-sign Mike Williams. Mike Williams, like, the coaching staff has brought out the best of Mike Williams. They're allowing him to play underneath more, allowing him to be effective and not as high risk. So when we fast forward end of the season, should Mike Williams be resigned? Think about, for me at least, my biggest gripe with Mike Williams was he was never healthy enough to finish the whole season, so you're not going to get enough out of him. You don't have that right now. And the coaching staff has a lot of credit to be given because of that. So Mike Williams, huge day. We haven't really talked about Justin Herbert that much, but we always talk about Justin Herbert. But Justin Herbert is kind of sliding into that MVP conversation. Yeah, I think if he would have won the game against Dallas, Jake, I think it probably would be in kind of the top 3 or so. I think people who actually watch the game and know football know how good he has looked. But you kind of talked about it a little bit, but for Justin freaking Herbert to go into Arrowhead, 4 touchdowns, could have had easily 350 yards, no interceptions, and literally played better than Patrick Mahomes, who I would argue is the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, what more can you ask for from your second-year quarterback who can't lead teams to victory? Remember that? Your quarterback can't lead, doesn't have the personality, isn't an alpha. Where are they at now? Like, he is what every football team outside of maybe 3 would rather have on their team. So, Justin Herbert, crush it. Tavon Campbell, love what we saw from him. Jake, you and I talked about it beforehand. One of the things we love about Brandon Staley's scheme is, yes, like, there are the superstars. There's the Derwin James. There's the Joey Bosa's, just like there was Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, whatever. But the defensive scheme that Brandon Staley provides allows the other guys to rise up. And he brings that level or that difference in play from your bottom depth chart to the top a lot closer together. And so to see Tavon Campbell, Alohi Gilman, Asante Samuel Jr., like all these guys making plays and getting costly turnovers, and like that, I think, is one of my favorite parts about this. Is Staley talks about like winning as a team, and you heard about it and never really got to see it, and now you're seeing it, and you're not just having to rely on your stars to win you games. The whole team gets to do it. And so those young kids like Tavon Campbell got himself paid. You mentioned Austin Eckler. The whole offensive line I thought did really, really good. Joey Bosa, man, on freaking one leg, the dude is out there. I think he had 10 pressures.
10.
I think he had a 90.2 pass rush grade, which is 3rd all week in the NFL. 35.3% win rate, Jake, 2nd on 1 foot.
And he had a half sack.
The guy's ankle was wrecked, and he was having, I think I tweeted about this maybe 3rd quarter. He was having like that Buffalo Bills, like one-man wrecking ball type game. It doesn't show up in the box score other than the pressures. But for what he did to be able to enforce that much of an impact, hobbled by one leg, like that was impressive, man. Derwin James out with a shoulder dislocation, apparently, comes right back in. I know all of us were holding our breath there for a moment. Derwin James, huge in that game. So many unsung heroes. So many sung heroes that we've now been able to use our bars for. Jake, were there any other unsung heroes or players of the game that we did not mention other than the 47 we've already talked about?
No, I think we covered them all.
Yes, Timothy Reuters. Herbert's throwing him open. Everyone needs to go and vote for Justin Herbert for Air Player of the Week. I believe he is out for that, as well as Asante Samuel Jr., I think, is going to be looked at as potentially Rookie of the Week again. So let's see what happens there. We got all kinds of stuff, Jake. Is there anything else before we get into the fun time, which is the hotline, sponsored by Charger Bolt Family? By the way, Jake, the Charger Bolt Family has a signing of a one Justin Herbert coming up. For all your memorabilia needs, you can go to Charger Bolt Family. They are on Facebook. They're also on Twitter as well. They have all kinds of signings. They do all kinds of giveaways. Great community. They have a signing for Justin Herbert coming up here in a few weeks. If you are interested in getting a Justin Herbert signed memorabilia, whether it's a helmet, shirt, jersey, you name it, check out Charger Bolt Family. Tell them Chargers Unleashed sent you, and they'll hook you up. Jake, we made it. So everyone is excited about this Week 3 victory against the Kansas City Chiefs. We got a couple of voicemails here. Let's get into them. We have Grant from Lubbock, from the great state of Texas, calling in. Pretty excited about this game. Let's hear what Grant has to say.
Love when East Coast Charger fans call into the show.
Lubbock, Texas. I don't even really know what to say other than I was so nervous. the whole game. But I was really confident as well. I think I called in last year, pretty mad for one of the games, maybe the Broncos one.
We all
I was
did.
pretty mad at Anthony Lynn. And this game, I was really confident. Just what Staley had shown, I was really confident in him. He kept going for it on fourth down.
Jake, were you confident?
You know what, Dan? I'll be honest with you. I would have given Staley credit regardless of the outcome of that play call, because I would have said it was the right play call either way, whether or not they would have been able to continue the drive or not. That would have been the right call in that type of scenario against that team.
I agree.
He called that timeout to go for it on 4th and 4, and then there was the false start, and then he still sent his offense back out there. And then not only did he do that, but he made a great, or even Lamarty made a great call there with the play. I'm really pleased with Staley so far, for sure. And then also just like Mike Williams looked great, but I want to say that Herbert, I felt like Herbert genuinely looked and was better than Mahomes today. I'm so happy that we won an Arrowhead like that. I'm just so happy. I'm buying a white Keenan jersey to celebrate for sure. Anyway, what's up, guys? Thank you.
Let's go. White Keenan Allen jersey.
Very few people, and I referenced this because Mike Greenberger was talking about this on his show this morning. He said there are 5 quarterbacks that in the duration that Patrick Mahomes has been in the league, there are 5 that if you go statistically by the end of the game, have outplayed Mahomes or have, been better as far as a quarterback rating, touchdown to interception ratio, more yardage, whatever it is, in total quarterback score. There are only 5 quarterbacks that have outplayed Mahomes. Justin Herbert owns 2 of those. And I'll even bother to give the Raiders a little bit of credit here because Derek Carr owns 2 of the other ones as well, believe it or not. But it's very few and far between that other quarterbacks get to say, or anybody can say, that Patrick Mahomes was outdueled or outplayed, especially on his own home field. So, yeah, Mahomes is going to get his, man. He's always going to get his. Even in a subpar game for him, a subpar game, that's good enough to win a game.
Everyone would take a subpar Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, look, it still came down to the last play, even though Patrick Mahomes had a subpar game by his standards. Throw for, 260, 3 touchdowns, still had 2 crucial picks, but still a subpar game nonetheless, and they almost won the damn game. So Justin Herbert didn't have to just be better than Mahomes. He had to be flawless, and he was. Red zone offense was better. The turnover ratio, 0 on offense. You can't have those mistakes against Kansas City. When you had to have it and you did, and your young quarterback came out and delivered.
Think about what his stats would look like, Jake, if he had that 4th and 4 conversion to Keenan Allen for like 40, and he had that 50-yard touchdown to Guyton. 5 touchdowns, 360. Dude would have been crazy. Jorge asked thoughts on the upcoming game against the Raiders. We're going to get to that, Jorge, but that is for another time. We are still celebrating the Week 3 victory. Trust me, we're going to get to the Raiders because that Monday night game is going to be epic. Hashtag I'll be there. That's my new hashtag, Jake. But yes, family, trust, respect, FTR all day long. Thank you so much for Grant Lubbock. Next call, Jake, friend of the show, I believe is a little excited about this last game. Let's hear what Tyler Lawrence has to say.
Tyler
Lawrence at the Master Bowl. What a win for the Bolts today, you guys. What a win.
Whoop, I messed that up.
I was going to say, that was short and sweet.
At the Master Bowl. What a win for the Bolts today, you guys. What a win. Nasir Adderley coming in with a bunch of tackles, like key tackles in the middle of the field. Asante Samuel having an outstanding interception on really like laying out for the ball. Chargers defense, Tevin Campbell, this guy's coming out of nowhere making huge turnovers for the team. This team won the turnover battle overall, and it was a big reason why they won this game. Brandon Staley going for it on 4th and 4 twice, and converting on both attempts. He's not playing scared ball. Even in that situation where I might have kicked a field goal, he's playing a different game, you guys. He's doing really well as a head coach, and I'm just excited to see how this team has improved overall. The energy on defense, Mike Williams, who really was a terrible route runner for a long time there, and he had a double move. He faked a slant, went for a touchdown, faded in toward the pylon. He's really, really improved. I might have to retract my statement about him not being a good route runner. But overall, this team is different, and I'm excited to see where this leads. Thank you guys so much, and bolt up.
Dan, I could see the steam coming out of your ears at that part of
Tyler's
call. There's like, breathe, calm down. He's giving him the credit, even retracting his statement a little bit. To summarize Tyler's comments there, yeah, it just feels different. It just feels different. Normally, you'd have to rely on your big names to win you the games, and not to say that you didn't have to in this game, because the big names came to play. But much like he said with an Alohi Gilman, with a Trayvon Campbell, two guys who really, outside of the starting lineup, you don't really tend to think that much of, but they contributed in such a big way for this game. Say what you will about it, just as far as like, okay, well, there's just one thing here. It's like, no, but it was huge. It was huge because of the way that how efficient that the Chargers ended up being in the red zone. You give them another opportunity and you take one away from Kansas City, that's a game changer. And yet, even still, I know the more of the uproar that everybody was talking about, Dan, is just like anytime that any team in any game gets 4 turnovers on the opposite one, you expect the final score to be like 35-0. But this doesn't happen against the Chiefs. They're always going to get theirs. And regardless of the fact of whether or not it still took 4 turnovers, it still came down to the final play of the game. But historically, Dan, this would have been something that I could have seen all the analysts talking about. The Chargers won the turnover battle and still figured out a way to lose the game. Like you said at the beginning of the show, that was a demon that was exercised. That's normally a game that we historically lose, even if those same things end up coming to fruition. As you mentioned, if that's an Anthony Lynn-led team, number one, there's probably not 4 turnovers, especially with Gus Bradley at the helm. But yeah, you probably lose that game 10 out of 10 times if we're talking about different coaching and different player development.
100%. 100%. Thank you so much, Tyler Lawrence, for giving us a call, friend of the show. Can't wait to have some barbecue with you at some point. We got to get that brisket going. Epic timing. Ken from Charger Bolt Family, the founder of Charger Bolt Family, comes in with a bunch of lightning bolts. Robert, we talked about Charger Bolt Family and the upcoming Justin Herbert signing. We will get you a link. I'll send that to you offline, or if Ken, if you're still on with us, if you can send over the link in the comments and I can go ahead and update it. I know you're in West Virginia, but again, for all your memorabilia needs, go to Charger Bolt Family. You can find them on Facebook as well as on Twitter. We'll put the link in our description afterwards in the episode. Check them out. Thank you for tuning in, Mr. Ken Mary. And yes, he is 2-1 against Kansas City, which is crazy. And the only one that he lost was on 3 58-yard field goals. Granted, one of them was against backups, but still.
Really, it's 1-1 because the game that you played last year, the final game of the season, wasn't against Patrick Mahomes. So really, it's 1-1. But still, regardless, the makings of the rivalry are here, and I'm all for it.
Yep. And I believe we've got someone that is agreeing with us. I'm not sure what exactly they're agreeing with us on, but I think they just think that we're right with everything we say. Jake, I think that's going to wrap things up. Folks, if you have not already, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, and subscribe. We're going to have some fun episodes coming, and I promise you, you are not going to want to miss one of the next few episodes, if not all of them, because we're going to have a special guest that you guys are going to love. He may or may not be a player for this Chargers team. Wink, wink. But until then, Jake, are we officially going to turn the page, and talk about Raiders next time we talk?
You know what it's like for Raiders week. And for a team that has basically surprised everybody, maybe with the exception of Raiders fans, is currently 3-0 and currently on top of the AFC West, tied with the Broncos, as everyone predicted was going to be the case 3 weeks into the season. And now you have another divisional game that has huge implications as far as positioning in the AFC West. And it's being done in SoFi, where you know that the fan ratio, I hate to say it, but it's not going to be dominant Chargers. It's probably going to be more reminiscent of the Cowboys game. The Raiders fans are going to turn out. They are going to turn out in LA. So lots on the line for both teams going into next Monday night's matchup. It's going to be huge.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, thank you guys and gals so much for tuning into the show. I know this went a little long, but hey, we got a victory in Arrowhead against the Kansas City Chiefs. Shout out to Nick Wilson, TSK, Ken Mary, Craig Smith. There are so many people that we can thank for all of the contributions you've given to us. Jorge Rodriguez, Edsky Munoz, Robert Harper. Jake, I'm going to have you start reading these names because I am terrible with names.
Oh, man, you know I'm worse. You know that I'm worse at it. It's by you by default.
Okay, fine. Yes, Raiders fans are going to be coming to SoFi, but so are Chargers fans. Make sure to get to the game early. We'll be talking about that all week as we get moving. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. You can find Jake and his impressive beard now at Jake T. Hefner. You can find myself at Chargers Homer. You can find us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. Please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, tell your friends and family. Chargers are here, guys. This is the start of something special. Enjoy it. Have some fun tonight. Cheers. Congrats on being 2-1. And let's have fun. It's about to be Raiders week, guys. Let's have some fun. We will talk to you next time on Chargers Unleashed. Have a great rest of the week, and we will be talking to you very soon. Jake, anything else you want to talk to the people about? We done? Ready to get a drink?
I'm ready. Simple as that.
Let's have a drink. All right, guys. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
To be really intentional about putting a team together.